Have her rotate around the table a little bit further. Stand by, everybody.
Scene one, take one. Marker.
Playback and action.
Hi there, I'm George Crosthwait. I'm the film curator here at the Garden Cinema, and this is our Hollywood on Hollywood season. But first, I've got to take you back to a time before there was a Hollywood. Right at the birth of cinema, the Lumiere brothers, the first thing they do, they turn the camera around, they film their own factory. Film has always been fascinated with film itself. When we get to the Hollywood phase, the first appearance of Charlie Chaplin's Little Tramp is interrupting a film crew in kid auto races at Venice. Then we get silent films such as King Vidor's Show People, early pre-code dramas such as George Cukor's What Price Hollywood. And it's that very classic plot device of the young aspiring actress coming into Hollywood, working as a waiter, and then making it on the silver screen. And George Cukor will make perhaps the best version of this story in his version of A Star is Born in 1954, where he elevates this to almost operatic form of tragedy and romance with the rising star and also the fading older actor.
Norman, there's nothing you can tell me
Now
about
listen
this.
to me.
I love you. I will
just
not
try
change.
everything I touch. I always have.
No.
Forget me. I'm a bad lot.
Hollywood films about Hollywood tend to look back on Hollywood history from a slight remove. So in the 1950s, we see films looking back at the schism of sound. And broadly, there are two different ways this is done. One ultimately will uphold movie magic, something like Singing in the Rain. The silent film actress gets discarded at the end of the film. It doesn't matter, you forget that. We're singing and dancing our way into the credits. Something like Sunset Boulevard really attacks the idea of the left behind, the old silent stars. And we end that film with the mania of Norma Desmond. And this is taken to really camp, hysterical, almost horror film heights by Robert Aldrich in the early 60s with Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It's interesting that when we move into the new Hollywood period of the 1970s, the historical period they would naturally look back on is one of the darkest in Hollywood history. It's the time of McCarthyism, it's the time of the blacklist. And actually, I think that might explain why there's relatively few films about Hollywood from the 1970s. So something like Martin Ritt's The Front seems a fairly conventional plot, but to actually have a film directly addressing the blacklist at this time feels mildly revolutionary. And that film does build to a crescendo of both emotion, anger, and sorrow.
I don't understand. Is anybody accusing me of anything?
If you would answer the question.
But which question? You ask one question, and then I answer that question, and then you're...
Do you know Alfred Miller?
You already asked that question.
And as we move into more contemporary times, if we get into this century, we're into this sort of postmodern phase of filmmaking. So something like Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman's adaptation is a real meta puzzle box of a film, turning the inability to make the film into the film itself. And it's smug, navel-gazing. It's a typically narcissistic narrative in that it's really engaged with its own neurosis.
Fat, bald, Kaufman paces furiously in his bedroom. He speaks into his handheld tape recorder and he says, Charlie Kaufman, fat, bald, repulsive, old, sits at a Hollywood restaurant with Valerie Thomas. Kaufman, repugnant, ridiculous.
And then, of course, we do have David Lynch's Mulholland Drive, perhaps his magnum opus, almost unclassifiable, a neo-noir, a dream picture, and for something that started life as a TV show, it's probably one of the most cinematic films of this century, and it is a film that you have to see at least once in your life on the big screen if you haven't already.
When you see the girl that was shown to you earlier today, you will say, "This is the girl." The rest of the cast can stay, that's up to you. But that lead girl is not up to you.
So I hope you enjoyed the season. I'm looking forward to talking with people about it and seeing you around. So let's do lunch, baby.
The book has no story. There's no story.
I'm not just selling the script, I'm selling me.
I'm on a blacklist. You know what that means?
That girl is not in my film.
You got any more little chores you want done in this picture?
The winner is Miss Vicky Lester.